This is probably the greatest transfer of wealth in history, with the exception of Jesus Christ dying for you and making you a co-heir in his kingdom to reign with him for all eternity. In the next 2 decades, close to $70 trillion is going to be passed from baby boomers to you, me, millennials, and Gen Z. This is probably the greatest transfer of wealth in history, with the exception of Jesus Christ dying for you and making you a co-heir in his kingdom to reign with him for all eternity. And when you think about it that way, money is really not that important. The wealth transfer is so much more than just money appearing in your bank account. It's actually about the army being equipped with every necessary resource to go forward into all the nations and proclaim the good news of the gospel. We are entering into that final harvest, and we can have no excuse not to have the plane tickets or the meals or the hotels. It's not about having nice things or having a nice car and having a nice home, while a transfer of wealth can lead to a more abundant life. Christ is calling us to be a pure and spotless bride before the wedding. He doesn't want a bride that has a poverty mentality. He wants a bride who knows what she's been called into and rises to that beauty and manifestation of the love that he's lavished upon us. He also wants a bride that's passionate for him and will die for him because she loves him that much. So the wealth transfer is about making sure that we have the resources, the tools, and the necessary funding so that there's no excuses not to get the gospel everywhere. God could easily just take a rock and turn it into gold in your hands, but I don't think that's the way that he prefers to act. I think he's a relational God. Rather than making you a quick microwave dish, he wants to cook you a slow crock-pot meal. And sometimes the blessings of God, the promises of God, as we're taught in Hebrews 11, they take a long time for them to fulfill. What I'm trying to say is that this calling of a wealth transfer is much more of a generational calling for an entire generation of millennials and Gen Z to rise up in their God-given callings, strengths, characters, talents, for them to spend time with the Lord and Holy Spirit and to tap into heaven and to bring the things of heaven into this earth, to bring the books that haven't been written yet, to bring the songs that haven't been sung yet, to bring the inventions that haven't been invented yet. The world has created so many problems, and the church is the solution. Now, the biggest problem of all is sin, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And that is the greatest solution that anyone can bring, anytime, anywhere. And I do believe that the wealth transfer is first and foremost to fund the gospel, to get the good news out there, to make sure that the plane tickets are paid for, the apartments are booked, the food is served. No lack, no prevention, no more excuses about not being able to bring the gospel to places that it's difficult to reach. Now, a much more long-term generational transfer of wealth, I do think, is what the Lord is after. Rising up a bride that is pure and spotless, that doesn't have a poverty mindset, but is so in tune with heaven, and I feel the Lord as I'm saying this, that knows his heart, that knows his will, that knows its calling, who knows what's going on in heaven and can get it here effectively and quickly. And I think that is what the funding is really about. Any one of us could wake up one morning and have a lot more money than we went to bed with. That's actually the parable of the 3 stewards in one way, if you think about it. The master was leaving, and he, surprise, gave a few talents to each of his servants. Each one of them was given according to their ability. You see, God wants to set you up for success and not failure. If a father has a lot of money and would love to buy his son an awesome car, but his son has a track record of poor performance, of racing, or of being just a little bit irresponsible, that car would destroy him. He would try and race it, he would crash it. It's much more of a liability than it is an asset for the son. However, if that son is responsible and has a clear track record of doing well, has a wide breadth of knowledge of their topics of interest, that car could actually be an asset to help further the father's business, to help further the son in whatever he wants to accomplish. In the same way, many of us want increase. Money is a boring topic, but it can often represent a lot of other things. Some of us are singers, some of us are writers, some of us are poets. A lot of us want a bigger audience. Whatever it may be, he gives to us according to our ability. He's not going to give us way more than that because it would crush us or destroy us, just like the young boy who can't drive a car properly. So when you're praying for increase, understand that if you want to increase more, if you want to manage more, you should increase your knowledge of the subject. You should become more responsible. As the saying goes, the more you learn, the more you earn. A better way of putting it is the more that you know, the more that you can steward. I don't know if it's a better way of putting it, but you get what I'm saying. Ultimately, though, you had one who did not steward it properly. You had one that could not manage it, and you do not want to be that person. So you should always be praying, Lord, you are my teacher. Lord, correct me. Correction is hard to pray for, but I've had some of my deepest, most amazing encounters with God praying, God, please correct me. Please teach me. Please show me what I need to do to be a better steward. Ultimately, it's not about the stuff, it's about knowing you. That whole parable is a great illustration of a very sensible world lessons of stewardship, but it's all about the kingdom of heaven. It says the kingdom of heaven is like a master who went out. So whatever we have, ultimately, it all goes back to the kingdom of heaven. That's what we're here to discuss and talk about. Our resources, our increase, our ability to steward. It's all about advancing the gospel. The financial system changes that you are seeing take place before your eyes right now, you will likely never see happen ever again. A currency becomes a fiat currency once it deviates from a gold standard. When you have a piece of paper and it's backed by gold or silver, that is sound money. However, when you deviate from that and you dilute the currency, it becomes worthless and it becomes much more of a confidence game. I give you this $20 bill or you give me this $20 bill, assuming that I can take it to go buy groceries. But I can no longer take it to the bank and get $20 of gold or silver, which is what you used to be able to do for the longest time. Nixon, Roosevelt, they both deviated from the gold standard, and then Alex Greenspan with the Obama administration completely deviated way beyond any proportions of anyone else ever before, creating trillions of dollars through quantitative easing. It's as if I were to give you a glass of orange juice, we water it down a little bit, but then we watered it down so much that everyone on earth just has a cup of water and there's literally like no more orange juice in the water. Complete dilution. Worthless orange juice because there's no orange juice. Worthless paper because you can't take it in to get gold and silver. This is not a message to go buy gold and silver. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just entertainment purposes only. I do own gold, I do own silver. I think it's a very sensible thing to own in a time of financial reconstruction and change. As currencies rise and fall, as they play out their maturity cycle, everything usually reverts back to the mean and the fiat currency pumps up the price of gold and silver. Is past performance an indicator of what's going to happen in the future? Nobody knows, but I would say yes, because it's happened hundreds of thousands of times with literally hundreds of thousands of fiat currencies all throughout history. However, this time is interesting and different because we have a new technology that can kind of merge with the old technology because it's not just paper and paper anymore. It's digital, old digital with a new digital. I'm going to explain the beauty of cryptocurrency. It's very weird to think that you would go to work for 40, 50, 60 hours, collect your paycheck, let's just say of like $1,000, and then you take that money and you give it to a bank. You take your hard-earned money and you just give it to somebody else. And by law, they only have to keep 5 to 0% of it. During this last crash, the sickness that was going on globally, they only had to keep 0% of it. This is called a Federal Reserve ratio. They actually don't have to keep your money. They lend it out to try and create stimulus within the economy. Now, here's the problem with that. If we all rush to the banks to get our money out at the same time, and they've only kept 5% for each of us, nobody gets paid. And this is why you see those photos of the Great Depression of people standing out the banks, waiting in line to get their money. With crypto, you unbank yourself. In other words, you become your own bank. You store your value on your own computer. You have your own keys to your own safe, which is stored on your RAM or your hardware wallet. When money is stored on an exchange or on your bank account, you are trusting a centralized web server to steward it for you. And if the lights go out, if Google authentication turns off, if they just simply say, hey, we lost track of it, we need you to go through our 25-day verification process, you don't have control over your own wealth. God wants his people to have control over their own prosperity. You are not called to be the slave, but you are called to be the lender. You are not called to be a debtor. You are called to be in abundance. You are called to have your own land. You are called to have your own money. You are called to have your own resources. And most banks have a lot of corruption. A lot of local banks are very trustworthy. But when you think about big banks, there's a lot of issues out there with that. And I'm going to end it at that because I don't want this video to get flagged for an unnecessary reason. About 8 years ago, Kim Clement, an amazing prophet of God who was persecuted because what he was saying just sounded like science fiction to most of the church. However, it's like a day-to-day news catalog right now. He prophesied saying that there will be a person, I think in the White House, doesn't matter. But he said, gold. This person will be obsessed with gold. When you think about the US and people that have recently been in charge of it, selected by the people, which one of them had a hotel company where every single building was painted in gold? Now, Kim Clement said, this man will return us to the gold standard. I do think that is in the pipeline. I don't know if it's in 3 years or 30 years. I've got no idea. But I think that we are entering in a transitional time where we all know that the paper is worthless and gold and silver, rare earth materials, have a lot of value. Have you heard of BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, Brazil, Russia, India, China? That is a metals-backed currency. I think that we are in a transitional season that can take a decade or 2 decades where countries revert back to a gold standard, and they do it with this new form of technology, cryptocurrency. Now, this is a lot of my own seer speculation. This is not necessarily thus saith the Lord. This is just what I have gathered. Along with that, I know that it is very important for the hearts of the sons and daughters to be turned to the hearts of the fathers and the mothers. That is very important to the Lord. What would it take in a modern day financial system for that to take place? You have a lot of boomer generation people with, let's just say, $50 to $100 trillion of worth, and you have a brand new technology that's a little complicated because you have private keys. It's not your just basic www searches. It's actually a new, it's a blockchain cryptography technology. The merging of these two, I think, is going to bring the generations together. And it's not just about people getting their money into crypto. It's also about the existing economic system, this old Babylonian system. All of the companies, all of the banks, moving their money from one system into another. And I do believe that this great wealth transfer comes by positioning yourself in advance before that flood arrives. You're just a little boat, and that water is going to rise your boat. As the financial saying goes, a rising tide lifts all ships. You just want to be positioned in advance. And the wealth of the wicked increases the wealth of the righteous. Now, in the extended long term, it's very tough to know who are going to be the successful crypto projects 5, 10, 15 years from now. Just like when the dot-com bubble took place, MSN and Yahoo were very popular. However, they were later replaced by Google, Facebook, etc. We don't know that far in advance, but what we do know is that the Lord has spoken to many people, whether it's about Luna Classic, Shiba Inu, XRP, some of these cryptocurrencies that 99% of the world laughs and chuckles at. I have prayed and received my own confirmations, as well as many other people on the internet, that there are chosen vessels where if your boat is positioned, it's going to go up really quick. In the same way that an ocean tide comes in, there's certain parts where there's rocks and water shoots up to the sky. I think there is a little bit of that where the Lord is just telling some of his children, hey, some of these things are going to happen. Maybe not in that manner because he's a little bit more chill than me. But I think that that is part of the wealth transfer, being positioned in advance. And I don't know what the extended long-term projection is going to be. I don't know when the Lord's coming back. I don't know if crypto is going to work forever or if electricity is going to fail us one day. I've got no idea. But based on what I can see at this moment, the storm that has come upon the earth, this perfect storm, as John Paul Jackson called it. I think that I can see at least 3 years in advance to understand and recognize these are some of the big changes upon us, and part of this wealth transfer, capitalizing on it, is having your ship ready, learning about the new system that we're going into, positioning yourself in advance, understanding that there's going to be a lot of wealth that's been stored up by the wicked that God brings into the kingdom for his purpose and for his glory. I'm going to end this video. You should like and subscribe. You should share this with somebody that is also interested in wealth transfer. And you should watch this again if it's information that is new or helpful or educational to you. One last thing. The best thing that you can have in life is just a relationship with Christ. It's super easy. You literally just say, Jesus, I want to know you. I want to have a relationship, a friendship with you. A lot of people are afraid in the book of Revelation because it says he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. A lot of people that thought that they were saved were not going to be saved. What he says is that depart from me, I never knew you. That word knew means that I never had an intimate walk, a friendship, to know one another, to know each other's hearts, to know what makes them laugh, to know what makes them cry, to know how they're feeling and how they're doing. He wants to know you. So all you got to do is say, Jesus, I want to know you. Hey, I'm ending it there. I love you. Stay blessed. Subscribe for more. Bye.